So, first of all, my revolutionary greetings, Jai Bhim, Lal Salam, Inqilab Zindabad to all of you. Definitely, we are living in dangerous times. At a time when the future of Gujarat is unfortunately for decades is projected as the future of Gujarat and future of nation. After killing more than 2,500 innocent Muslims, after subjecting hundreds of innocent Muslim youths to various brutalities and violence under the draconian law of quota, and after killing more than 20 people in fake encounters, Narendra Modi became the face of development in this country. This shows to what extent our consent can be manufactured. Everybody today is subjected to Gujarat model. What we are facing today is nothing but Gujarat model. It's a devastating, disastrous model. It is nothing to me but a combination of aggressive form of globalization and neoliberalism on one hand and the communal fascism on the other. Even before any intelligence agency, be it state ID, central ID, CID crime branch of Ahmedabad, crime branch of Godhra, Home Department in the state of Gujarat, Central Home Department, RO, even before any agency could have any clue as to exactly what happened at the S6 coach of Sabarmati Express, Mr. Modi goes to Godhra and makes the statement that this is nothing but purely terrorist attacks and it's a conspiracy hatched by those who are sitting in Pakistan. So this is how Narendra Modi started his scheme. Communal divide, communal polarization is his core politics. After going to Godhra and making this statement that Pakistan-based terrorists are behind the train carnage, he comes back to Ahmedabad and those 56 car savers who got killed in the Sabarmati Express, their bodies are handed over to one Jaideep Patel of VHP, not to any government agency, not to their respective families, and the bodies are lying on the streets of Ahmedabad. They are showcased again to engineer that outcry and anger against a particular religion. And then he goes for Gaurav Yatra. He is taking Gaurav, pride of what? That innocent Muslims are shamelessly killed, and that is the thing he is taking pride of. Thereafter, he comes out with quota, a draconian law, where the innocent Muslims are randomly picked up, taken to the office of Ahmedabad crime branch and various police agencies. They are given electric currents on their private parts in front of their sisters, bhabis, mothers, and who not. This has been the account of some of the people who have come out from the quota. And they start eliminating innocent Muslims youth, be it Sohrabuddin, Samir Khan Pathan, Sadiq Jamal or Ishrat Jahan. So these politics on one hand, riots, encounters, Gaurav Yatra and targeting innocent Muslims and therefore creating the communal divide. On the other hand, he starts corporate route. All the lands which are available for SC, ST and OBC is shamelessly handed over to Adani, Ambani and SR. So, as Arundhati Roy once beautifully and rightly articulated, that in the 1991-1992, we as a nation see the economic policy of globalization neoliberalism, and the main beneficiaries, handful of corporate giants like Adani and Ambani and SR, saying Narendra Modi, who is the poster boy of the Babri Masjid demolition gang, should become the Prime Minister of this country. So this is the link between globalization and communal fascism, and this is precisely what we have witnessed for 10-12 years in the state of Gujarat, and this is precisely what we have been witnessing for the past 3 years, and this is going to continue. And therefore, it reminds me of that Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who in 1938, at the struggle at Manmad, at the struggle of railway employees, rightly said that इस देश के श्रमजीवी वर्ग और दलितों के दो शत्रु हैं. There are two enemies of the working class and the Dalit masses in this country. One is Brahmanwad and another is Punjiwad. Brahmanwad and capitalism. I shall not fail to place it before you, before everyone sitting here, that the convenient and dishonest interpretation of Dr. Bhimrao Baba Saheb Ambedkar on the part of the off-late Dalit movement and the so-called Ambedkarites has led to the scenario where we Dalits are busy talking only about self-respect and dignity, and whereas our stomach remains khali. We are malnourished, we don't have proper shelter, no decent bread, and in that situation, we want to achieve self-respect and dignity. So, my attempt all throughout the Una and post-Una struggle has been to bring in that class perspective, which is terribly lacking in the entire Dalit movement, mostly all over the country. Post-globalization, when the material contradiction sharpens, where the gap between rich and poor has increased, the disparities are increasing with every passing day. Struggle against caste and class should go hand in hand. It is as simple as that. But unfortunately, Dalit movement is somehow entangled into few naras. They are chalked up into this rhetoric of Manuwad Murdabad, Brahmanwad Murdabad, Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim, and that is all. They are not talking about roti, kapda, makan, health, education, unemployment, land reforms, and many such things which has to do with their physical existence. And this is terribly lacking in Dalit movement. So, to me, one of the most important dimensions of the whole Una struggle is that we could successfully convince to thousands and thousands of Dalits that ours is struggle not just for self-respect and dignity, but also for our economic issues. And therefore we gave this nara कि गाय की पूंछ आप रखो, हमें हमारी जमीन. You keep cows there and give us our land. And through this nara we could capture people's imagination all over the country. And I am very happy to share it with you. Some of one of my comrades also mentioned in their speech that when Modi came to Gujarat in the month of January, I made this announcement that in Ahmedabad district there are villages where the lands are allocated to landless Dalits but only on paper. The actual physical possession, even after 2.5 decades, is not given. If the concerned revenue department and the officers is not taking the possession, then I will be blocking Modi's convoy. Nothing less than that. Following this announcement, within 8 days, we got the possession of 300 acres of land and the market price goes up to 31 to 40 crores. So when the Una incident happened, most of us have seen the video. The way Dalits are publicly, they are tied up with the four-wheeler, with the vehicle, and they are, beaten up like anything. So when the video got viral on Facebook and WhatsApp and other social media, many Dalit rights groups and NGOs, organizations started coming out on the streets of Ahmedabad and Gujarat. So I felt that this is a very usual phenomenon. When one case of atrocity occurs, Dalits start coming out on the streets. But like the Ubhar of soda bottle, we come out and then it gets fizzled out. We get settled. And then there is another big atrocity, then again we come out, we again see some sort of rising up, then it also gets wiped out. So between two atrocities, there is no concrete design as to exactly what we want to achieve. You will find many people in the Dalit movement saying कि हम लोगों को सत्ता हासिल करनी है. Baba Saheb Ambedkar said that political power is the master key and all. We should achieve political power. I asked this question to many people in the Dalit movement that immediately after achieving power, what will you do for the poor Dalits? Then many of them do not answer. Most of the people don't have any answer. So when the Una flogging happened and the video started circulating in social media and Dalits started coming out on the streets of Gujarat, I felt that the time has come for me to come out, shape the Dalit movement, set the agenda and bring in the class perspective. Otherwise, even this outcry will also get wiped out. And that's why I called for a Dalit Mahasammelan, a huge Dalit meeting at Ahmedabad in an area called Chandkheda, and then thousands and thousands of Dalits came together. So the Dalit movement, which was otherwise very scattered, there was no one on the scene to galvanize them. So the only role that I played is just mobilization, just galvanizing the Dalit movement and trying to give it a class perspective and shape it. In that event, one significant thing happened, very historical, and that is in the history of Gujarat and probably in the history of Dalit movement, it happened for the first time that more than 20-25,000 Dalits took pledges in the name of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar that from here on we won't be dragging dead cattle, we won't be removing carcasses, we won't be going inside the gutter, and we won't be doing manual scavenging. So if the Dalit movement is the movement of self-respect and dignity, and if you still continue manual scavenging, if only you keep sweeping the streets of this state and country, if you continue removing the carcasses, then you can't do the struggle for your self-respect and dignity. Both don't go hand in hand. So Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar had gone to the extent saying कि भूखे रहना पड़े तो भूखे रहो, लेकिन जाति व्यवस्था ने आपके सर के ऊपर जो मेले गंदे काम थोपे हैं और जिनके चलते आपको अनटचेबिलिटी मिली, उस काम को जरूर छोड़ो. The caste system has imposed certain obnoxious, inhuman, filthy jobs on you, and for doing so, untouchability is inflicted upon you. So even if you want to remain empty stomach, remain empty stomach, but call it a day. to those filthy jobs. This is what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar said. So for the first time in the history of Dalit movement in Gujarat and probably India, 20-25,000 people, Dalits, took pledge in the name of Ambedkar that we won't be removing carcasses anymore. And this was the historical punch on the face of the Sangh Parivar and BJP people. Sangh Parivar and BJP have become absolutely brazen person after Modi coming to power. They can go to any extent. If I am committing any criminal offence, I say this thing in almost each and every speech of mine, that if I am committing any criminal offence, there will be that fear in the back of my mind, whether somebody is seeing me or not. Here in the case of Mohammed Akhlaq and Una, you see, those who are involved in the crime, they themselves are preparing the video and proactively circulating in social media, clearly sending the message that they are absolutely fearless. So they know that they will be undoubtedly protected. So from where this assurance comes, there is the question. To me, the colonial state got replaced with a tiny minority of upper caste combination, hegemonizing all the organs of the state. And the foundation of this hegemony, particularly in rural pockets, is land. And therefore land reforms are vital to dismantle this unholy nexus. In India, who will become landowner and who will become landless is designed by caste. In India, who will be doing the job of Purohit and who will be sweeping streets and doing manual scavenging is determined by caste. Meaning, caste has given me a specific kind of economic status. Caste has given me a particular kind of class position. I stand not just for the removal of untouchability, but also want to get out of that filthy, obnoxious, inhuman economic status. And that's why the struggle for self-respect and dignity and the struggle for our economic upliftment both go hand in hand. You will be shocked to know that the first Land Reforms Act that came into force in India was probably the Saurashtra Land Reforms Act. But the Saurashtra and Gujarat were separate states. Under that land reforms policy, 55,000 tenant tillers belonging to one particular caste, and that is Patel, got 12 lakh acres of land, 25 lakh bighas zameen. They got 25 lakh bighas zameen under the Saurashtra Land Reforms Act. Now, historically, Dalits have always been landless. Everybody knows this. But under the Saurashtra Land Reforms Act, not an inch of land is granted to Dalits. Clearly shows to what extent the state can be feudal and casteist. So this is a historic injustice meted out to the Dalits of Gujarat. Following that, under the leadership of Dadasaheb Gaikwad, from 53 to 65, large-scale struggle for the land rights of landless Dalit take place all over the country. Everybody in the Dalit movement is talking about Honorable Kasi Ramji, but nobody knows the name of Dadasaheb Gaikwad. He was the lieutenant of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and Babasaheb Ambedkar, though he was late, but clearly said to Dadasaheb Gaikwad in 53 that I feel that I couldn't do much for the landless Dalits who live in the villages, and they are subjected to far greater violence than those who live in urban pockets. So now I really wish to do something for them. So there was clearly a message coming from Babasaheb Ambedkar himself that the politics of representation or reservation through the constitution means is not going to help Dalit cause beyond the point. So Babasaheb Ambedkar, Lieutenant Dadasaheb Gaikwad, started land struggle in 1953 in Marathwada, 1959 we again see the struggle at Khandesh and Marathwada. In 1964 and 1965 under the banner of Republican Party of India and under the leadership of Dada Saheb Gaikwad, we see such a strong and powerful Dalit movement for the land struggle that more than 360,000 Dalits and landless people were in jail during that struggle, and during that struggle titles of nothing less than 39 lakh acres of land Dalits and landless people got. But nobody is talking about this history. This has been the rich, fertile, powerful, concrete, solid Dalit history. Nobody is bothered about it. So, all our attempt is to bring the agenda of land to dismantle this casteist socio-economic feudal structure. That is precisely what I am at the moment working on, and that is what is and will be the legacy of the Unnao movement. I think the time has come that the Dalits, Ambedkarites and left must at least now come together. Otherwise we are gone. We as a nation are already almost gone. This man, Yogi Adityanath, shamelessly says that he can do anything with a Muslim woman. He has become that person. He says, मेरे एक हाथ में माला है और दूसरे हाथ में भाला है. We who believe in the legacy of Savitribai Phule, Jyotiba Phule, Ramaswamy Periyar, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Shaheed Azam Bhagat Singh, we apply logic, we apply scientific approach, and this takes us to cherish the legacy of Wright brothers, and they talk about Savarkar and Golwalkar, and therefore they cherish the legacy of Pushpak Viman. So this is the difference. So this compels me to say that at times I feel that here the struggle is between monkeys and Homo sapiens sapiens. So we want to go to 21st century, 22nd century, we want to talk about logical power, we want to cultivate and develop scientific temper, we cherish the legacy of Shaheed Azam Bhagat Singh, Baba Saheb Ambedkar, we cherish the legacy of dialectical materialism, we want to talk about modern science and technology, we want to talk about Darwin, and they want to talk about only Savarkar and Golwalkar. So they want us to go to 17th century, and therefore they are the dark, devil and medieval forces. So after this realization, if Ambedkarites and communists don't come together, then history is not going to forgive us. It's as simple as that. History is not going to forgive us. Yes, undoubtedly, we have seen the mechanical application of Marxism on Indian soil. Yes, we have seen that. We know that left historically failed in realizing and recognizing the gravity of caste. Agreed. But now that realization is also there. There was not that realization what caste is. This realization is there. So these we have to also appreciate and understand. Most of the people in the Dalit movement ask me, why do you go to left? Why do you talk about Marxism or communism? Why do you show your left inclination? My answer is very simple and clear. When I do so, I am referring to the Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar of 1936, when he created Independent Labour Party with red flag, and mind you, it was not the party of Dalits, it was a party of workers and peasants with red flag. So blue was originally red. And therefore I say J.B. Galsana. Nobody talks about this Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We are busy talking about the Baba Saheb Ambedkar of Scheduled Caste Federation and Republican Party of India, but we are not talking about the Baba Saheb Ambedkar of Independent Labour Party with red flag, with a class perspective. No, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar was not a Marxist. His was not the method of dialectical materialism to analyze the society, but he had a class perspective, and that's why in 1960, when he writes his famous essay, Caste in India, he says that caste is an enclosed class. But we don't know that. So this is the Ambedkar I want to talk about. This radical interpretation of Baba Saheb Ambedkar undoubtedly will take me and all the pro-Dalit masses closer to left. That is absolutely simple and clear. And this is precisely what we need to work on. We talk about the Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who became the chairman of the drafting committee of Indian Constitution. We don't talk about the Baba Saheb Ambedkar of states and minorities, when he proposes nationalization of each and every inch of land. When he proposes the nationalization of key industries, we don't talk about this Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We talk about the Baba Saheb Ambedkar who adopted Buddhism in 1956 at Nagpur, but in the same year, from a conference in Agra in 56, he talked about land reforms. Where is this Ambedkar? Why this Baba Saheb Ambedkar is gayab? Time has come to, bring him back. Time has come to bring radical Baba Saheb Ambedkar on board. And that is precisely what Dalit movement needs to do. At the same time, left movement will also have to genuinely, wholeheartedly plunge itself into the Dalit cause. There can't be revolution on Indian soil without Dalits soldering with them. And without revolution, annihilation of caste will remain an impossible task. It is simple and clear. So wherever I go, I make this attempt to sort of bridge the gap between Ambedkarite forces and communist friends. And I don't mind admitting it publicly. It's a great failure on the part of the Ambedkarite movement and also the part of the communist movement that we both can say, Savitribai Phule Jindabad, but there is least leadership of women in both the movements. So in India we have caste and class intertwined. Then in India, caste and patriarchy are also intertwined. Brahminical design doesn't permit intercaste marriages. Meaning, whether X can sleep with Y or whether Y can sleep with X is designed by Brahmanism. And that's why Uma Chakrabarti says this is Brahminical patriarchy. And down with this Brahminical patriarchy. So, considering and understanding this interrelationship of caste, class and patriarchy, we have to shape our public causes, our movement, our struggle, our andolan and also our politics. And therefore, I say from all the platforms, the land should not be allocated to Adani, Ambani and Essar, it be allocated to landless poor, and whenever it is allocated to landless people, it should go to landless Dalit, and when it goes to landless Dalit, it first goes to landless Valmiki, Arundhatiya, and even amongst that, the priority be given to Dalit women. And even some of their priority be given to below Valmiki women, below Arundhatiya women, and even some of them priority be given to those who are engaged into inhuman practice of manual scavenging. That is where we want our democracy to penetrate. This is our idea of India. This is our idea of democracy. So, very shortly, probably in the month of July, you might see the second phase, new chapter of the Una movement. The Una incident happened on 11th of July. So I'm planning a national level conference at Ahmedabad to carry forward that legacy, to cherish that struggle, and then all of you join. And from the next day, most probably from the 12th of July to 19th or 20th of July, we'll have a foot march where we will visit certain villages during the course of that foot march. And in those villages, we'll be doing two things specifically. We'll be taking place in the name of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, that we won't be touching the dead cattle. We won't be removing carcasses. And along with that, we will start filling up the forms for government wasteland, which should be granted, and it should be granted in the name of the Dalit women. So this cultural movement on one hand and the material struggle on the other has to be the agenda, and I will try my best to carry forward that struggle that way. And once that yatra is over, once that foot march is over, we will have a huge gathering somewhere in North Gujarat or maybe in Ahmedabad, where there will be Muslims, there will be tribals, there will be Dalits, there will be Patels, there will be all the people who wants to go for the progressive radical project of annihilation of caste. Those who don't believe in Hindu Rashtra but believe in secular democracy, those who don't want to create a corporate democracy but a socialist society. So this is all I am going to say, and I hope I have not disappointed you. I am not in my usual temperament and energy because of the throat infection. So thank you so much for providing me this opportunity to share my views. And definitely there was an intention on my part to disturb some of the people. I hope I have succeeded. So now let us have a question answer session, and let us try to make it more and more interactive. Maybe during the interaction some interesting questions will come. I will also get enlightened. I will be able to share my view. I will get many things to know from what is happening in Tamil Nadu. I am not much aware of. Very recently I have started going to Kerala and Karnataka, and I will be just sharing one more interesting thing, that it is also one of the success of the Una struggle, that the way we had this Chalo Una Yatra, we had at Karnataka Chalo Udupi. And there also the Dalits are getting involved in the land struggle. So I hope that similar kind of platform is created. Some Chalo to some okay, that we should come out with. And very soon we will have a foot march from Kasaragod to Trivandrum against the government which is in power in Kerala. Some of the comrades were chanting this slogan with me during the Una Yatra, that you keep cow still, give us our land. So now I go to Kerala and ask them, give us our land. They are saying sorry. So I am saying, no, nothing doing. I will be coming to Kerala. The way we block the streets of Ahmedabad, I will be blocking the streets of Trivandrum. Because without land reforms, structural radical change on Indian soil is not possible. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Red salute, red salute. Red salute, red salute. Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim. Una Elchinayagan. Una Elchinayagan. Seppanakam, Seppanakam. Seppanakam, Seppanakam. Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim, Jai Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim, Jai Jai Bhim.
This slogan of Jai Bhim and Lal Salam, it has to become a material reality. And by that I would mean both the camps coming together on ground zero. We have to, for instance, during the course of our yatra from Ahmedabad to Una, so many communist friends join, many Ambedkarites join. So when we participate together in a struggle, that participation, that collective effort is real blending of Jai Bhim and Comrade. Just chanting this, Jai Bhim, Lal Salam is not going to help you at point. It's just a rhetoric. So it has to become a material reality, and it becomes a material reality when you start working together on ground zero. Land could be one of the issues. Any democratic struggle for our constitutional rights, labor rights, when the caste violence occurs, we go together, we work together on that. You see, that is how the JP Lal Salar become reality. But it is also good. I've been to Delhi University, JNU, many of the college campuses. This chunking is going on. So I often say that Jignesh Rewani should say Lal Salar, then the Delhi wants to share more JP. So when this happens, it will work out. But still, as I'm pointing out, on ground we have to work together, and that will automatically, when we start working together on the ground, it will definitely become a reality. And that is another part of this question is that what about the organizing? See, there are Dalit parties and there are communist parties as well. But it is not necessary that this Nara, JP Lal Salar is meant only for them. It is for many, it's for many other organizations as well, those who are not into electoral politics. The idea of JP Lal Salar is to bring Ambedkarites and communists together. That's it. Some of the Ambedkarite groups and parties and communist parties are also losing their strength and even credibility at places. So, how do we do about it? Well, it is up to them to redefine, redesign, restructure themselves. We can create our own alternative politics as well, and it will emerge from the struggle. If X is a communist party and Y is a Dalit party, if they are not ready to reshape themselves, that is their problem. Ramdas Athawale says, people should be in Shiv Shakti. Now, short what is Shiv Sena to do with Dalit goes, it's terrible. When Ramvilas Paswan, who resigned from the NDA on account of the 2002 riots, displaying a very secular face. Now, the Supreme Court gave so-called clean chit to Narendra Modi. So Narendra Modi became a pure-hearted human being for him. He became a secularist. So he's again down grateful. So when there is this kind of opportunism is there. Neherji also campaigned, Naidu also campaigned for Narendra Modi in 2002 in the name of Ambedkarism. So this is all, all this is vulgarity. This is all obscenity in the name of democracy. So when you this sort of opportunism, and if you don't stoop any level for your electoral success, then this is not going to become, I am not very optimistic or hopeful about it. I am more inclined about what I am involved in. I am more inclined about what is happening at what is happening at with the JNU campus. I am more inclined with what is happening in the villages of Gujarat where people have stopped wearing their cattle. So this kind of, we see what is rotten is rotten. Let us forget it. Let us not waste our time on that. But we can definitely create our space. And for that we will have to come up with our agenda. See what happens. Narendra Modi would say that Gujarat is vibrant. And the mistake that we made as our Gujarati for 10-12 years was this. 45% children of Andhra is not vibrant Gujarat. But this is, the logic is perfect, but this is reaction. Instead of that, we should have launched some campaign through which the problem of malnourishment can be solved. So setting our agenda is precisely what we need. In 2013, I was reading some random article. So I read that in 2013, some 151,841 jobs were created by the government. In 2015, thanks to Narendra Modi, there is even somewhere to 89%. 60,000 jobs for 125 crores. So I must say that Modi, you created the impression that you will be creating jobs in your field. The point is that the logic is perfect, but again this is reaction. Instead, I launched a campaign saying, "Guy ki kuch aap rakho, hame 10 lakh rozgar do. You keep constant, give us 10 lakh jobs." And there is happening education on it. So setting our agenda will definitely create space for ourselves. Proper implementation of land reforms. We can say we are talking about Garimata, but what we want is medical facilities and medical staff be provided in each subsector, primary health center, CHC and district hospital as per the Indian public health standard norms. So again, we have to work on two fronts. We culturally expose them on the agenda. They will come out with their feudal, medieval ideas. We counter them with our progressive content. Right? They will talk about, they will say that Muhammad Ghazali ने सोमनाथ का मंदिर लूटा, Muhammad Ghazali looted the Somnath temple. Then we will have to tell the masses कि रास्ते में during the course of this journey, he also destroyed one mosque, masjid at Mumbai. So we will have to tell our history, the true history. So that way we can respond to them. And another is when material, when see the ultimate unity has to be, to me, on our existential issues. And once that becomes solid and concrete, and we say our agenda, then definitely we can, to some extent we can beat their communal agenda. And I don't want to claim here on this that I have a formula to defeat the communal forces, but this could be one of the attempts. I would very humbly submit it. The question is about the Dalit Muslim unity in Gujarat. So Dalits are untouchables. Muslims are also untouchable. Dalits are treated as second class citizen. Muslims are also treated as second class citizen. Most of the Dalits are working class. Most of the Muslims are working class. Historically, Dalits live on the outskirts of villages. That is their ghetto. Post-2002, in Ahmedabad, Baroda, and many other places, they are compelled to leave their houses and the ghettos are created. So there is no reason why these two camps were coming together. So we have tried this attempt in Gujarat, and it succeeded largely during the Yatra. Many Muslim friends joined the Yatra, hugged us, embraced us, joined in the Gujarat 50 Thomas Thompson during the course of the Yatra. So this Nara was clear. Vibrant Gujarat Bharat है Dalit Muslim Ekta Zindabad. So we are working on it, but we should also keep it in mind that it should not evolve only around defeating somebody BJP. It should entrench properly, and by that I mean it has to have strong cultural and social roots. So if citing Baba Saheb Ambedkar or otherwise they say that we should go for intercaste marriages, they won't care. But if I say we should go for interreligious marriages, then they will say, can we genius level? I've seen this reaction coming from various corners. And this makes us also from the certain subclass of Dalit community. It's very interesting that I want to share with you. There is an NGO called Lok Sajjan in Gujarat which has conducted an field inspection research they carried out, and the outcome says that in randomly picked up 1,589 villages of Gujarat, 96 types of untouchability forms, 96 forms of untouchabilities are found. That much of untouchability. Those survivors are subjecting Dalit to this kind of discrimination. Now, there is internal subclasses among Dalits as well. One Doti Island area, as we were talking today. So, there in Gujarat 98 types of form. So suppose Chamar is discriminating a Valmiki or Anupatiya on certain grounds. So there are 98 forms of form. So there should be inter-subclass marriages first, along with that intercaste marriages, and there should be inter-religious marriages as well. So we also need to go beyond religion and caste. The struggle is not for this. That you are Nair, there are Anupatiya. No, the struggle is not for this. The struggle is to say, you are not a Nair, I am not a Chavan. We are citizens. The struggle is for that. When we put a lot of stress and emphasis on caste identity, right? It is actually detrimental to the cause of eradication of caste. This realization is not coming. And as per the Dalit Muslim unity, I would say it again that and I can imagine how life must be very difficult for the radical Muslims. Because the moment you talk about the inter-religious marriages, they will go. they're not going to listen to you. So they want my support only to struggle for the cause of Ishwar Jahan. But the moment I talk about that kind of cultural reform, then they become uncomfortable. So this has to be properly dealt with. But even if that doesn't take place as of today, we should definitely come together at least to defeat the Sangh and BJP, at least that we can definitely achieve. 7%, and they can't form a political party of their own with that much of percentage. That is not practical. But even if it is practical, I don't like this idea of forming a Dalit party. Again, there will be a party based on a particular identity. Political parties should not be launched on the identity of religion or caste. Because the only thing that caste knows is to destroy and dismantle and devastate. That is the whole value of caste. Caste तोड़ने वाली चीज है, जोड़ने वाली नहीं. Right? So the caste with unity doesn't work out beyond that point. In fact, it should not work out. So, as far as Dalit parties are concerned, we are based on a single Dalit political party, and one good thing that has happened in recent times, particularly during the Mumbai post struggle, that many of the Dalits who got sacrificed in 2002 rights and they have become in a conflict. In some of the places Muslims affect Dalits affect them more. So as a Dalit and as a citizen of this country, I held my head in shame being a Dalit, that Dalits participated in 2002 rights. But the situation has improved greatly, and many Americanized Dalit groups, secularists, progressive people now are work in this regard. And the way Dalit Muslims came together in Gujarat, so the situation is changing positively. If Modi was responsible for 2002 riots, how he got elected again in 2004? We know what Hitler did, and still he was a true emperor for many millions of Nazis. There was that phase. But history is not going to spend Modi. Becoming CM or PM doesn't mean you become a great human being. He wants to go in that league. He wants to, the only thing that now he wants to achieve is the two things Modi wants in life. Retain power through whatever means, and for that he can go to any extent. Home Minister of Gujarat, Ren Pandya, blew the goal of Sangh Parivar, Home Minister Brahmin got killed. And we know who is done it. So he can go to any extent. Another thing that he wants to achieve is he wants to go in the league of Sardar Patel, Nehru, Gandhi, Mandela. That is what he wants to achieve. We want that to happen, at least. Let's go. So land to the pillar, post-globalization, thanks to the forces like Modi and Adani's, it has become land to the tycoons. Right? So, as I pointed out, we as a Dalit progressive movement are already led. When I myself have done a bit of research in the Farmer Society of Gujarat, and I know that the farmers were already having more than 5% of them are committing suicide. But when it comes to Dalits, it has primarily structural change. So even if after obtaining land I am not able to sustain myself properly, I will go for land reforms. Because I want to dismantle this feudal structure. That is my priority. And when we do so, we definitely keep this agenda of we can remain this demand that agriculture sectors to be properly taken care of. So, but it has it has connection with globalization and imperialism. So it calls for a larger, we have to see the larger comprehensive picture. And it's going to take a lot of time for that. But since it is going to take a lot of time, and since it is a very difficult task, and since land to the pillar is becoming land to the tycoons, and since those who are having 5% land are committing suicide, doesn't mean that I will not struggle for it. ये नाम लगाना पड़ेगा. So I started saying in all my speeches that the way we celebrate 14th April, time is come to celebrate 14th February as well, Valentine's Day. So yeah, scene of Indraka Square is not very healthy or very greatly positive, but it's happening. The way, the scale on which it should happen, it is not happening everywhere. And whenever there are intercaste or religious marriages, like Tamil Nadu or Telangana, there is some 20-year-old boy is killed. So this, we are a country of cow panchayats. Right? We are terribly casteist people as a nation. We are not a nation as well, actually, as Baba said, we are a nation in making, we are a comparison of caste. We see, think, analyze, interpret, everything is done in terms of caste. So we are not a nation, I am sorry. But the way, the kind of cultural values, the feudal medieval values, casteist values we have imbibed, we are still that way not very open for intercaste and religious marriages. But I never hope on the youth of this country. Keep loving people, keep making love, keep doing romance, and let us have this Nara, Pyar is Mohammed Zindabad. Let us celebrate 14th April, let us celebrate 14th February, Valentine's Day as well. This would be the reply to the Sant Parivar people. The Sant Parivar, the Shiv Sena in particular, this Muthalik kind of forces, they attack the lovebirds. We want them to fly wherever they want to. To you, what is the relationship of Periyar and Ambedkar? I won't reply to this question till I come the next time. I will just go to the book of some of the articles and essays of Ramaswamy Periyar. I will go through and will respond next time when I come here. Thank you. Good to know about Ramaswamy Periyar. At times I feel he was more radical than Baba said.